Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Actions Taken by Farm to School Grantee Sessions. My name is Gwendolyn Holcomb. I'm the Senior Technical Advisor for the Office of Community Food Systems. Today's panel of Farm to School grantees will provide insight on how they have taken creative actions to pivot their farm to school projects to elevate local food and continue to support their communities during these challenging times. I will be the moderator for the session. After each speaker's presentation, we will leave time for questions. Please submit your questions for each speaker in the Q&A box. Our first speaker is Megan Grubb. Megan is the Farm to School Coordinator for Brooklyn Center Community Schools in Minnesota. Megan helps students connect with their local food system and build lifelong skills to becoming mindful food consumers. Please join me in welcoming Megan.
Hi there. As mentioned, my name is Megan Grubb, and I'm the Farm to School Coordinator for Brooklyn Center Community Schools. Today, I'm going to discuss a little bit about where we started with our Farm to School program when we received our grant in 2018, and then where we are now after some of these unforeseen changes that have occurred in the past 7 months. So you can move on to the next slide. So I'd like to give you some context for our school and community. Our school district is located in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, which is a first-ring suburb of Minneapolis. We have a total of 3 physical buildings, which include our elementary school, a combined middle high school, and an alternative school that serves just over 2,000 students. We're also a highly diverse school district. Our population is made up of a greater percentage of non-white residents than white, and we also have a very high immigrant population that's reflected in our students. Something else that's really special about our school is that we are the only full-service community school district in Minnesota. What this means is that we have a combined focus on school, health, and social services, and community engagement. So more specifically, the school acts as a hub of the community, and we have over 100 partners that our school works with. And so with that, we offer supports like after-school programs, we have immigration services, community engagement opportunities, and an on-site clinic that provides free and low-cost healthcare for any young person that lives in Brooklyn Center. Next. So as I mentioned before, we originally received our Farm to School grant in 2018, around a year before I actually started the position. And our original goals for this grant were to increase the amount of fresh fruit, vegetable, and whole foods eaten during school meals, and then also to really promote and increase knowledge and self-efficacy related to healthy food choices among our students. So how we plan to do that was through these 5 major objectives I have listed here. The first was determine where we can add local ingredients in our school meals with the goal of increasing local foods in our cafeteria. The second was to improve our food service staff competence in preparing local foods by offering them 2 culinary skills trainings each year. The third was to find out what our local product availability was and pick out some key farm partners that could support a Harvest of the Month program. The fourth was to develop student-led and school-based procurement options. So practically that meant growing more food in our school garden and creating a classroom hydroponic setup. And then lastly, we really wanted to create school and community excitement for our Farm to School program. Next. So here we are though, almost entirely through our grant, and we have really had to shift gears. So starting in March, we couldn't connect in person. There were no more field trips, of course. Our in-person school garden work was suspended. Our school lunches quickly shifted to things that we could quickly order that came in a plastic bag. And really everyone's job at the school was turned upside down. But these challenges also gave us time for some serious reflection and some new paths to move forward. So after things settled for a bit and we had a moment to consider what we wanted to do, we started taking some actions. So one of the first things we did was we extended our USDA grant, and we changed it slightly so that we could better serve our students during this time. We also built a really large new garden space this spring, and although the students could use it, this was really kind of fun to see all of the teachers and new staff become engaged in the school garden. We were also able to plant a ton of produce this spring. And later in the season, this had been used for free little farmers markets during school and meal pickups and socially distanced back to school events. And so at these free little farmers markets, we also offered seed packets and recipe ideas for how to use the veggies at home. And as much as I would love to say our school garden could support hundreds of families, that's just unrealistic. So we also ordered some produce from our farm partners, which was a great way to stay connected to them and promote our farm partners as well. Also, our school meals have changed a lot during this time. We moved to bag lunches completely, and a lot of grace was given to our food service staff because school plans changed literally every day. So the beginning of spring began with very traditional bagged meals like PB&Js, chips, you get the idea. But now that we've had some time, we've begun to order some local food again. And it's just taken us some time to figure out what works and definitely does not work in a paper bag. Another thing our school staff has done is to include little things like recipe cards, stickers, and fun little other things that just lets our students know that we're thinking about them and we really care and things for them to do at home. And then lastly on this page, a new program we started this summer was Virtual Summer School, which included a new offering, Virtual Garden Club. And although the idea of providing such a hands-on activity online somewhat terrified me at first, we actually had a ton of fun. Students were able to pick up activity kits to use at home, and then we met once a week to do activities. So we did things like cooking demonstrations, I fermented cabbage with them, we grew seeds at home for microgreens, and then I did things like I even took them on a virtual foraging event outside for wild plants and fungi. And then we, of course, connected with each other socially. Next. Okay, and some of the additional things we have done now during COVID, I also listed here. Our Youth Wellness Council also shifted to online Zoom meetings once COVID hit. The students and I met online each week, and we talked about a number of food and nutrition topics, and then we also did activities together online. For example, we watched food justice documentaries and kind of hotly debated them. We did cooking demonstrations, and we did things like lead virtual garden tours at home. The students also started their own Instagram account, I showed here, for our Farm to School program, which has been really awesome to see them take ownership of. And then here we also had free plant giveaways this summer. We built a new relationship with our horticultural society this spring, and we received a ton of free plants from them, and then we're able to redistribute them for our families so that they could garden at home. And then third here, our wellness coordinator and I also held an online staff nutrition campaign that we would hope engage our staff throughout the summer in wellness topics. So with that, staff would suggest topics that they were interested in, and then the following weeks, we would touch on many of these subjects in online Zoom meetings. And then lastly, listed here, we were finally able to start in-person garden classes again with the children of first responders at our school. This was really cool because it allowed us to re-engage with our farm partner educator again. And then also our students were able to have some hands-on programming as well. Next. And then, so here's some of the things looking forward into the school year that we've made a number of new plans, and we've forged some new relationships actually during COVID. And one of the most exciting new relationships we've developed is with a partner organization called the Dirt Group. The Dirt Group they're mental health practitioners who use food and gardening as a means to connect with students through work with positive behavioral changes and social connection. So this relationship began in the spring and then has almost completely gone virtual, but it's received a ton of positive reviews and is a really big asset to our students. We are also working with our close partner, the Regional Park District, and they're helping us to reimagine our outdoor classroom spaces. They received a large amount of grant funding to help us overhaul our school garden. And so we're going to include some large shade trees and then really purposely design an outdoor schooling space. And then lastly here, our school is prioritizing this year and working towards becoming an anti-racist school district. And that means that every program within our school is imagining what that looks like within their program. And so just one thing that food service is going to do this year is to offer more culturally inclusive meals to our students that honor our student body. So we'll be working all year with various partners to highlight dishes from various cultures represented in our student body to educate and respect our students' backgrounds. Of course, this list is not exhaustive, but just some of the changing plans we have moving into the school year. Things are literally changing every day, and so only time will really tell how this program will develop over the school year. But I do feel really lucky that our school values this program so much, and I feel really optimistic about the future. So that's all I have today. Thank you for listening, and yeah, feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you, Megan. We do have a few questions in the chat box for you. The first question is, can you describe your social distance practices when hosting in-person farm-to-school events?
Yeah, they've been kind of hybrid farm-to-school and community schools events that we've done, or food service. Everything we've done outdoors, and masks are required. And every time we've done a socially distanced outdoor event, we've had people stay in their cars and we've asked people what we can get them, and then we bring things to them so that we don't have a bunch of people getting out of their cars and coming to us. And then we've also done a lot of work to schedule. We have people pre-sign up for events so we can know how many people to expect, and then we'll assign people different time slots for when to come.
Okay. Thank you. And this is actually a two-part question. One is, do you have a link to your kits you provided for remote education? And the second part of that question is, how many students attended the Zoom meetings, and can you share more information on the student Instagram account?
Yes, so yeah, that's kind of a three-part question.
It's okay. Yes.
So yes, after this, I can share the link for the student Instagram account. I think they're talking about the Zoom meetings for, I've had two different kind of online student groups. I had student virtual garden club this summer, and that was for kind of middle high school, summer school. And that was very variable. At the beginning, we had 5, and then sometimes it went down to just 2 students, and then sometimes we had 3. It was really different all of the time. It was really hard to get engagement over the summer, especially this happened kind of right after COVID hit. But our student wellness group had 10 students in it, and then by the end of the group, we had around 8. So that sort of engagement stayed really strong throughout.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Did I cover
that? I think so. If not, they will have a chance to reconnect with you. We're getting a lot of good questions in here, and I think I only have space for timing, maybe about 2 more. I'm going to ask this question. Did you get any resistance for using produce from a in-ground garden, not organic, not safe to consume?
No, people were just super appreciative to have fresh produce. I mean, because we were also giving away Sheridan bags and a lot of dry produce goods as well, people were super appreciative to have kind of like fresh tomatoes, peppers, things like that to add to these dry goods bags that we were giving them. No, I didn't have one person say anything about.
Okay.
getting anything for the
Great.
school card.
One more.
Yeah.
We are getting a lot of good questions, and just to the audience, we do apologize. So we won't be able to get to all of these questions, but you will have an opportunity to connect with Megan through email after the presentation. One last question for you, Megan. You mentioned some local foods did not work well as a bag lunches. Can you expand on this a little, provide examples, and tell us more about this trial and error experience?
This is kind of a tough one for me to answer
Okay.
because I haven't been super involved in the packing of the lunches, but I know I've had some pushback of things that I've suggested that we could do local. Like things that have worked really well are things like apples, pears, like whole carrots, you know, with like a ranch packet dip that we'll put in there. When I've started suggesting more like cooked meal type things, like, hey, could we do a pumpkin soup this fall? That would be really fun and seasonal. I've gotten an absolute no. We're not doing that because it could spill over all of the rest of the meals, could ruin everything. So a lot of like whole foods, and also like our staff is changing every day, it seems like, throughout COVID based on our social distancing requirements, and everybody's lives are kind of upended. So we're trying to make it easy on our staff, yet putting as much local foods in our meals as we can. So there's kind of a balance to hit there. So a lot of, yeah, whole foods and not a lot of like juicy, wet, cooked foods.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you, Megan. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. We do have a lot of questions in the Q&A as well in the chat box, I see, and they're asking for your email address. We will make that available to the audience. So once again, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of follow-up, but we must move on. Thank you, Megan. We really appreciate your presentation. So now I would like to introduce Faith Ross and Cindy Callahan from Urban Roots in Nevada. Faith joined Urban Roots as the executive director 4 years ago, bringing with her an extensive background in fundraising, marketing, and education, and little to no in how to farm or agriculture, subjects she wholeheartedly embraced and continues to learn more about every day. For the past 5 years, Cindy has been helping changing the way kids eat and learn in Northern Nevada as Urban Roots farm to school educator, farm camp director, and now education director. Faith and Cindy, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so grateful for all of you attending today. We were grant recipients in 2019, and so it was really exciting for us to be able to go to New Orleans last year. A lot has changed over this year, and this is what brings us together today.
So we are a 10-year-old nonprofit, and we're based in Reno, Nevada. And our mission is to change the way that kids eat and learn. And we do that by creating garden classrooms and operating a farm, and I'll tell you all about that. Our mission is to grow healthy minds, bodies, and communities. And our focus is in the Reno and Sparks area, but we also have served Northern Nevada in general. Since our inception, we've served almost 20,000 students and over 2,000 community members. Next slide, please. So we have two primary programs that we work with, two primary locations. The first is in our school district. There are 64,000 students in our school district, K through 12, and so we work with them. And then we also have a farm. We have a partnership with one of our local hospitals called Renown Health. They have gifted us the land to be able to operate our programming. So we call it the Urban Teaching Farm. It is literally in downtown Reno, and it proves to be an amazing oasis for all of our educational programming. Next slide, please. So in our schools with the Washoe County School District, we do what we call garden classrooms. So at this site, each site, we build a school garden for them. We also have to have a plan and get processes and approvals, everything through our school district. So we try to be that conduit for schools, so they don't have to write the proposal, they don't have to do the plan, we do it all for them. We also, what I think makes us unique to others in our region is we place a teacher at the school, and they are there once a week throughout the entire school year, teaching in that garden or teaching in the classroom if the weather is inclement. So everything we teach is based on gardening. We believe that you can teach every academic subject through the lens of gardening. We also conduct teacher trainings. So we are teaching the school's educators on how they can incorporate gardening into their curriculum and getting their kids excited to learn through science or math or English language arts, all of it through gardening. Since in 2019, we served almost 3,500 children in their schools. And what we do is we fundraise for these schools. So the bubble schools and the low-income schools, we do all of the grant writing and everything to be able to ensure that the school can get our programming for free. So last year, 78% of those schools that we served were low-income schools. Next slide, please. These are some pictures of our school gardens. Garden build days are one of our favorite days. We get the kids outside and they're literally, as you can see from this little girl, using screwdrivers and everything to be able to build. It's a blast. So again, we call these our outdoor classrooms, and just get the kids outside and excited to learn. Next slide. So at our urban teaching farm, we conduct 3 different programmings. We have field trips and then a homeschool enrichment program, as well as day camps. Next slide. So these are some photos of kids at our farm. So I'm sure a lot of you have similar pictures that you could share too, but we have high tunnels. So we have 3 30 by 72 foot high tunnels that we were able to create. Those were also funded by this local hospital that I mentioned, Renown Health. And it's amazing because it allows us to grow year round. We actually have a pretty short growing season in Northern Nevada. And so with the high tunnels, we're able to see kids and grow all year long. Next slide. So for our field trips, that's a half-day program. It's K through 8. Last year we had 569 students. That's really exciting for us because we actually planted our first seed at this farm on August 1st of 2017. So we're still ramping up our field trip programming at this location, but it's been a really exciting ride. We also last year did all of the fundraising, have everything secured to be able to add a teaching kitchen at our farm, as well as restrooms. Right now we're using a porta potty. So we're super excited to be able to welcome kids and be completely seed to table when they come to our farm. Hopefully spring 2021, we'll see what things look like, but we're under construction right now. And so we're excited. Hopefully the timing that we get kids back to the farm is also the same time that we have this kitchen ready for them. Next slide. Then we also offer a homeschool enrichment program. The Reno Sparks community has a very large homeschooling audience, and then especially now with distance learning is one of the options that a lot of our parents have chosen through our school district. And so we're kind of combining between homeschool students traditionally and then these new distance learners. So this is a program for 5 to 12-year-olds, and we meet twice a week. Last year we had 227 kids. And so it's a really great way for them to be able to get away from their families and learn with different adults, also to interact with other kids and also having their hands dirty the whole time. Next slide. And then finally, kind of what we became first well known for in our community are day camps. And so these are a Monday through Friday program that is conducted whenever our school district is out of session. And they're 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. all day long. We have kids at the farm. And then we see kids ages 5 through 15. So last year we served 743 kids. We also have a very active scholarship program for the students there. So last year, almost 30% of our students received scholarships, including lunch, to be able to attend our day camp programming. Next slide. And now we'll turn you over to our education director, Sydney. Sydney and I have worked really closely together on our USDA grant. And so she's gonna let you know what our grant was about and also how we've kind of pivoted during this pandemic.
Hi, everybody. You can go to the next slide. So originally, this grant was going to help us serve 1,000 low-income tribal youth at 2 schools in our area, and then also 2 after-school program sites for the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. We are going to build gardens at those after-school program locations and teach at all of those locations every week. We are going to have a training for the teachers to help them learn how to teach in the garden and how to implement our curriculum. And then we are going to have a grade level from every school come on a field trip, where after the field trip, they also receive an activity kit to continue their learning at home with their families. And our last one was we are having family fun nights at their gardens once they were all built in the spring. Next. So what actually happened, we were able to teach until March, but we are not able to build the gardens at 2 of the sites. We did have a training for our teachers in February with about 30 teachers in attendance. It was really amazing. And we had one of our field trips from the middle school, but we had to cancel the rest of them. We had to cancel all the family nights in the garden, but we were still able to get those home activity kits to the students. Next. Because we were unable to accomplish those original grant objectives, we added a few new ones. We were able to give out more home activity kits to students. And over the summer, a much more robust version of an activity kit, which we called a summer camp in a box. Our activity kit is usually for like 1 day of activities. The summer camp in a box was for a whole week of activities for the kids to do. We usually use the produce at the farm for taste tests during field trips, and we send it home with students. But now we are harvesting it and giving it to the Food Bank of Northern Nevada and also to the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, which is the after-school program that we were working with before. And they're picking up the produce and delivering it to their families in 2 different locations, in Reno and then also Hungry Valley, which is different outside of Reno, about 40 minutes. Next. So we were working with quite a few partners before, but then you can go to the next one. Now it's really focused on the Reno Sparks Indian Colony to accomplish those new grant objectives and get home activity kits to the kids and get our produce to the people that need it. Next. So I know all of you probably know this, without in-person programming, it's definitely a challenge to maintain engagement with our students. So our goal is family engagement, and it really always has been. And we are accomplishing this through these activity kits and the produce that the families are receiving. The activities are translated into Spanish. They provide all the materials that you need so families don't have to buy anything. They even have soil for them to plant. Then the produce also comes with kid-friendly recipes for the families to try together. And we're also talking to the after-school coordinators about once a month to check in and see what their families need, as this situation is always evolving, and what they need and what we can provide is always changing. Next. So this pandemic is putting a lot of stress on all of us. So this project is really helping to relieve some of those stressors placed on families. The produce and healthy recipes to try are free, so they don't have to spend any money on that. And it gives students something to do that's not on a screen, because everything that they're doing at school is on a screen right now, if they're doing distance learning or even if they're at the school. So it also gives families an outlet for stress, for teaching them how to use basic gardening skills. It also takes some stress off of parents that are new to homeschooling and they need something educational for these kids to do at home. Maybe they don't have time while they're working. Next. So thanks for listening. We'll happily take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sydney and Faith. We do have a few questions in the Q&A box for you all. Did you provide classes, workshops, or some form of education for teachers?
For teachers, yes, we had a teacher training in February, and we had another one scheduled for later in the spring, which we had to cancel. And now we're thinking about doing a virtual training if the teachers want it this fall.
Okay.
We're actually sending a survey right now to all of our teachers to see if this is even something they can tackle or interested in right now, in addition to everything else they've got on their plates.
Wonderful. The next question is somewhat on the lines of the previous question I just asked. This participant would like to know the resources that you provide in order for them to teach gardening and agriculture across all subjects.
For teachers?
Yes, for teachers.
Yeah, when they come to our training, we give them a USB with a lot of our curriculum on it, and that has our standards, our science standards, math standards, and English standards that those are meeting. A lot of them also have health standards on them. So we give them our curriculum, and then in the training, we go through how each lesson can be taught to all the different grade levels and adapted to their classrooms.
Okay. Thank you. I also want to pause. I see that there are questions that are coming in the chat. I'm actually checking the ones in the Q&A box. I'll try to get to the ones in the chat, but the ones in the Q&A box are the ones that I'm actually asking first. So we do see a lot of those coming in as well. Just wondering what the home activity kits include.
Oh yeah, sure. Each one is based on grade bands. So we have a kindergarten to second grade one, a third to fifth grade one, and a sixth to eighth grade. And each one has a pot and soil and seeds to plant at home. And they also all have an age-appropriate book. They have a scavenger hunt to do. One of them has a pollinator scavenger hunt. One has a sustainability one. And then they all have a craft and a science lesson to do, and then all of the materials to do those. And the instructions are in English and Spanish.
Great. Next question. Are you looking into a policy change to incorporate school gardening into the school district, including funding?
We would love to, and we've been seeking grant funding to support something like that. I believe that Urban Roots is just the right organization to make something like that happen in Washoe County School District, if not the entire state of Nevada, but definitely on our radar and something that we want to pursue.
Great. The next question, do you find it hard to keep their interest in the summer to stay engagement? In the summer to stay engaged, sorry, I misread that question there.
Can you repeat that?
Do you find it hard to keep, I'm assuming, the students' interest in your summer programs or your virtual programs that you're doing to keep them engaged during the summer? Do you find it hard?
We didn't find it hard. We were hearing from lots of our students and getting lots of amazing pictures of their plants that they're growing, the activities that they're doing in our
Right.
summer camp in a box, because it's not on a screen. I think that's the biggest part that does keep them engaged. They're not just looking at a screen all day. They're doing hands-on activities.
Okay, wonderful. Next question. Do you track whether or not the take-home activities are actually being used by the kids and families?
That is part of our grant funding actually through the USDA, was to be able to work with some consultants from the University of Nevada, Reno, and to be able to illustrate, are these even helping? Are they going into homes? Are parents opening these kits and actually doing them with their students? So we don't know the answer to that yet, but we are tracking it, yes.
Great. Let me see here. You mentioned you place one educator at each school that teaches once per week. Is this the same educator that visits multiple schools? Can you speak more about how the schedule works?
Sure. This year we had 6 farm to school educators that all had 1 or 2 schools that they went to, and that was their school for the whole year. They are also the same educators that teach at our field trips and our homeschool program and our camps. So besides everyone having their own school, the rest is like who's available, and then we add them to our schedule.
Great. I see a lot of questions coming in regards to sharing your curriculum that you've developed. Folks are very interested in seeing that development curriculum you all have worked on. This will be the last question because we do need to move on to our next group of panelists. How are students transported to day camp?
When we do have day camp in session, it's the parents. And so that has actually been a hurdle that we're working on always. We found that we can give scholarships to students to be able to attend, such as students who are living in motels or low-income housing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they can get to our camp though. So that is definitely something that we've been working on with the local area foundations. Some of them have provided buses. In the past, we've even rented vans. We've partnered with our school district for the Children in Transition program, and they've transported the kids. And then our new farm is located right next to a bus stop. So we're investigating that too, but definitely something that we have not solved yet, but is an issue that we are trying to address.
Thank you, Cindy and Faith. We do have a lot more questions for your team as well. And if you don't mind, you can also add your email into the chat box. Megan did include hers in that chat box too. But as I've mentioned before, we will be providing contact information at the end of the grantee gathering. But lots of questions. Unfortunately, we're not able to get to all of them. So I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of follow-up afterwards. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our final set of panelists are Morgan Maloney and Libby Lyon. Both are operations specialists with the Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia. Morgan has focused on farm to school and operations at Fairfax County Public Schools food and nutrition service for 3 years. Prior to that, she led farm to school education programs as the farm educator director for the Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food and Agriculture, and created the Food Learning Locator as a food security initiative consultant for the Bainham Family Foundation. Libby also focused on farm to school and CNP operations. Libby has served as a food corp service member in Washington, D.C., managed farmers markets and CSA operations in New York, and worked with a team to start schoolyard gardens and garden education program in Charlottesville, Virginia. Morgan and Libby, it's on you.
Thanks so much, Gwen. Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan, and I'm also here with, of course, my colleague, Libby.
Hi, folks.
We're really excited to be here today and to share a little bit about some of the things that we've been able to innovate on during the pandemic with our USDA Farm to School grant. So next. So just to start out with a little bit about Fairfax County Public Schools. So we are the 10th largest school district in the country. We've got more than 189,000 students, about 57,000 of them who qualify for free and reduced meals. That makes us also the largest school district in our state. The Office of Food and Nutrition Services, which is the office that Libby and I work within, we are self-operated, and we conduct pretty much every child nutrition program that is available. So the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, the CACFP program, and of course, summer meals. Next. So we were so thrilled to be awarded a USDA Farm to School planning grant. We got that award last July. And of course, given the pandemic, which sort of, caused school closures and all sorts of other things in March, we were able to apply, and our grant is now extended until June of 2021. So the three main objectives of our planning grant remain the same. We're just sort of innovating within them. So those main objectives are one, to collaboratively create a 5-year farm to school strategic plan for a farm to school, to pilot a garden to cafeteria program under the Office of Food and Nutrition Services for the with the intention of it being eventually for the whole school division. And then basically planning to plan around farm to school curriculum integration. So I'll spend a little less time talking about that last one, just because it really is more of an exploratory conversation phase. As you can imagine, curriculum in the 10th largest school district in the country is quite an undertaking. So we'll focus today on the first two. Next. So our biggest, most exciting part of our planning grant was creating a strategic plan. And the process that we had envisioned was in person, bringing people together. And of course, that all had to change and shift to a virtual strategic planning process. Next. So we launched our strategic planning process after competitively competing to bring on a consultant, a strategic planning consultant. We needed that expertise on the team. Neither Libby or I are strategic planners. We have a very different skill set and expertise. So, creating a 5-year strategic plan for farm to school for the 10th largest school district in the country really did require strategic planning expertise. So we found the right person. So Alex Lewin-Zwordling is our amazing farm to school strategic planning consultant, and we were able to start working with her, of course, in April of 2020. So like I said, we imagined an in-person strategic planning process, but we knew that wasn't possible, and so we needed to pivot and find other ways to really engage with folks to make sure that this process was still collaborative and still involving everyone that we wanted, right? All of the voices at the table. So we had to be really intentional about that. One example of doing that was we did one-on-one interviews, or Alex conducted one-on-one interviews and facilitated small group discussions that were all either over the phone or on Google Hangouts. So all of those folks that you can see there, we were able to engage around conversations of, what does farm to school look like to you? What does it mean to you? What do you want it to look like here in FCPS? And of course, in order to make sure that virtual engagement, you know, went smoothly, we put together a lot of support materials to help people, you know, log on, open up Google Hangouts, things like that. And in the end, it went really well. We were able to engage with over 20 different folks. And as you can see here, we were able to engage with almost every sort of role within food nutrition services, which is really important. So we did that also before the school year came to a close, because many of our staff go off contract in the summer. So we wanted to make sure to engage with them before that. Next. So another component of our strategic planning process was forming a farm to school coordinating committee. Originally our plan was to have, you know, this huge group that, you know, we could bring to our offices and we could do, you know, the process I had imagined was very much so involved, you know, people writing things down on paper and chatting with each other and doing breakout rooms in person. But of course that wasn't possible. So we had to shift gears and make this coordinating committee one that was really conducive to a virtual environment. So we trimmed it down a little bit, the size. We brought down to about 13 coordinating committee members, but we were really intentional about making sure that those folks were bringing expertise from all these core areas of farm to school that you see here. And of course, that's provided by the National Farm to School Network. So we just made sure that we had you know, folks from the different part of the local food supply chain and the core elements of farm to school, so that this coordinating committee would be, you know, an effective group. And Libby and myself are also on this coordinating committee. So our, you know, task is to create mission and vision, goals and objectives, you know, within the farm to school, the 5-year farm to school strategic plan that will then of course be taken out more broadly and shared with stakeholders, and we'll get feedback and things like that. But anyway, so switching to a virtual coordinating committee, and actually we had our second coordinating committee meeting just earlier today over Zoom. So it was exciting. Next. Oh, and I'll pass it over to Libby to talk about another way that we were innovating in our grant.
Great, thanks Morgan. Hey everyone, I'm just going to talk a little bit about another objective of our grant that we ended up pivoting from a bit due to COVID, which was piloting a garden to cafeteria program at one of the elementary schools in Fairfax County, Holland Meadows. So Lisa, you can go to the next slide. Oh, I think that's the previous slide. Awesome, perfect. So phase 1 of our garden to cafeteria pilot involved finalizing various garden to cafeteria protocols, including putting together a garden safety checklist and communication plans between school garden coordinators and cafeteria staff. We began to put these garden to cafeteria protocols into use at Holland Meadows Elementary School in the fall of 2019. So it was really exciting to see a number of fruits and vegetables that were grown and harvested by students in the Holland Meadows School Garden were incorporated into the salad bar, where students were then able to eat them for their school lunch. During phase 1, we also began introducing garden to cafeteria to other schools within the county. And one way we did this was through a workshop where we gathered school garden coordinators and folks from partner organizations to discuss all things garden to cafeteria. There was a lot of excitement generated around garden to cafeteria in the fall, and we had huge plans for phase 2 of the pilot in the spring. But when schools closed and we no longer had access to either school gardens or cafeterias, we realized that we needed to pivot. Next slide. So Luckily, Morgan and I are able to be in touch with farm to school folks across the country through the National Farm to School Network. And we were able to see people from across the country putting their heads together to innovate and continue to think through ways of implementing farm to school programming in light of COVID and school closures. We were especially inspired by groups nationwide who were working on various iterations of bulk seed distribution for students through vegetable growing kits. And the folks in Nevada, a similar kit, you know, the camp in a kit, I forget what it was called, but things that were similar to that. So we decided that a vegetable growing kit at home would be a great pivot from our garden to cafeteria pilot at Holland Meadows, as we would still be able to incorporate farm to school enrichment through school food service. So to do this, we gathered a really wonderful team of folks from across Fairfax County and our partner organizations to develop our take on vegetable growing kits for students, which we ended up calling Grow at Home. Next. Great. So our Grow at Home program's main goal was to provide a farm to school learning opportunity at home so that farm to school education would feel continuous for students at Holland Meadows, even during school closures. So through this program, we wanted children to be able to engage with growing a plant for their consumption, either inside or outside. We wanted students to still connect farm to school meals. And we especially wanted to create opportunities for students to have hands-on connection with plants during such a strange time with school closures. Next. So what we ended up putting together was a Grow at Home kit that was simple and engaging and included everything a child needed to grow a green bean plant at home. So these kits were passed out at the Holland Meadows SFSP emergency meal sites, along with no-cost meals that were being distributed by our food service staff. Each kit contained 5 green bean seeds, a gallon bag filled with soil, and 2 resources that we provided in both English and Spanish. That first resource is a letter to caretakers with instructions for how to plant the green bean seeds with their children. And we actually had the instruction be to use the empty and cleaned out milk carton from their school meal to start the seed. And then the second resource, which was really the big resource that we handed out for student engagement, was an activity packet for children to use to learn about their plant as it grew. So everything from when to water, when to transplant, and how to transplant, and then various activities that would encourage children to observe and engage with the growth of their 6 plant parts and then eventually harvest. Next slide. So here's a look at part of the instructions document that was provided to caretakers with each Grow at Home kit. We also created supplemental videos for children to support learning through the various stages of their plant's growth, from starting the seeds all the way through the harvest. I will say though, everything covered in the videos was also covered in the printed materials distributed to each child. And this was really important to our team putting this together, because not all children and families within our community have consistent access to the internet to view the supplemental videos. So we did ensure that the kit itself had everything needed for meaningful engagement. And Morgan's actually going to drop the link to our Grow at Home resource folder in the chat, so you can see all of the materials that were in the kit. So you can all have that resource. Great. I'm now going to hand it back over to Morgan, who's going to talk a little more about how we adapted our grant project through the Grow at Home program and how it's expanded since the pilot at Holland Meadows. Next. Thanks, Lisa.
All right. So the pilot at Holland Meadows, the Grow at Home pilot, just went phenomenally. We received both really positive feedback as well as really constructive feedback, both from families and from our food service staff, who were actually the ones giving out the kits. And overall, everyone was really just elated to receive something that would, like, you know, engage their students and their kids in growing something at home. You know, it was a really exciting day. So we ended up giving out over 200 Grow at Home kits. And like I said, we were able to get that feedback really quickly. And the Holland Meadows garden teacher, who was a collaborator on the project and on Garden to Cafeteria within our grant, she was able to, as a teacher at the school, she was able to pop in on virtual learning and get feedback from students that way. So I noticed someone asked a question in the Q&A about how did we gather feedback. And we weren't able to send out a survey or anything of that variety. Instead, we relied on getting qualitative feedback from the garden teacher who was able to pop in on classes. Next. So in an amazing turn of events, we were not only able to innovate within the Garden to Cafeteria objective of our USDA planning grant, but also we were able to create a program that we could use down the line. And we almost immediately sought outside additional funding, and it was really well received. And we acquired the funding and were able to expand actually to all 63 of our summer meal sites this summer. So we handed out over 4,000 kits to families over the summer. And in an amazing way, these activities that hopefully you'll check out when you click on the link in the chat, we can use those, FCPS can use those, even throughout after the pandemic, right? Even when students return to school, it's something that can be utilized into the future. So it's been really exciting to share these things with you all, and we're looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Morgan and Libby. We are just ecstatic with all the information that we've received thus far. Once again, we are at time and we have a lot of great questions in our Q&A box. So I only have time for a couple that I want to give to you two, and hopefully we can answer those. The first one is, can you share your protocol for Garden to Cafeteria?
I can put a link in the chat box to all of our Garden to Cafeteria resources that we've developed. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, great. I'm going to try to shoot for one more. How did you address GAP certification within your Garden to Cafeteria program?
So GAP certification is not a requirement that we have as FNS, so it didn't come up as an issue. We don't have a requirement for GAP, it's a best practice. So we also are pretty in close contact with the school garden leads who are completing the Garden to Cafeteria protocols and managing that as well. And we go through in the protocols, what sorts of things, should be used to tend and care for the garden. And those are basically in line with GAP.
Thank you. Once again, I do see a lot of questions in regards to sharing your curriculum and your activity kit ideas as well. People are interested in that, and hopefully we'll connect with you all later to get the link. I see a couple links are showing up in our chat. We are pretty much at time. Thank you to all of our participants. Great questions. I'm sure we could have actually gone on with this session for at least about 30 minutes or maybe an hour more with all of the great information that was provided. I also would like to take this time to just thank our amazing panelists for today. All of you were wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to share your stories, resources, and best practices. I know that they have provided inspiration to our Farm to School grantees, our current Farm to School grantees, and everyone that's participating in this meeting today to move forward during these challenging times and to continue the work in bringing local foods to our communities.